The future of Obsidian is not looking all that good currently. Yes, they made Fallout New Vegas, and it was amazing by all standards. And then they decided to make their own game, and well, they tried to catch lightning in a bottle two times in a row in the form of the Outer Worlds. And not a single person called that amazing. But it wasn't actually that big of a flop considering everything. Still, not exactly what one was looking for, but not exactly a win either. And now, their most recent claim to fame is Avowed, which was a 100% flop. And now they're making the Outer Worlds too. And they are taking the teachings, the learnings, the criticism of Outer Worlds 1 and not doing any of the things that players actually want. Instead, they're adding new guns. Yeah, the thing that no one asked for. Let's see how it works out.
Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. Today, we are gathering to talk about the Black Rock Obsidian Entertainment, who is doing something very interesting here in 2025, something that many developers can barely do once every 5 years. That's releasing two full-featured RPGs in the same year in Avowed, and provided it doesn't get delayed, the Outer Worlds 2, which I imagine, given it's a developer direct game and all that IGN first coverage, that the Outer Worlds 2 is probably locked for 2025. Nonetheless, though, Obsidian since 2022, come the Outer Worlds 2, will have released 4 games in that span in Grounded, Pentiment, Avowed, and the Outer Worlds 2. So they're getting close to that reloading the chamber phase in 2026, and where that leaves them is an exciting, interesting conversation. But given the recent news of Carrie Patel, the game director for Avowed,
My wife, she left, she killed the game, she ruined everything, and she moved up the ladder and became a bigger big shot. What a time to be alive, okay? Someone wins and someone loses. She won. Everyone else, though, sadly lost in gaming.
leaving Obsidian Entertainment,
But to be fair, listen. She went to Netflix Gaming. Yeah, what the fuck is Netflix Gaming? Same. I don't know that. Okay, it's the same as Amazon Gaming, which anyone barely knew anything about it. But Godspeed, my wife.
I feel this actually answers a lot more questions that I don't see the media or other content creators really giving
And no, she does not know that we're gonna be married. She does not even know I exist. But it's a work in progress.
attention to, because I get it, like Carrie Patel is a brand new game director in the scheme of things. She only started directing things with Peril and Gorgon in the Outer Worlds and really established herself on a public level with Avowed before leaving Obsidian Entertainment. So a lot of news cycles like, okay, here's where she's going, that's it. But I think there's more to the story that I want to unpack here. So let's do that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and you're into what's going on with Obsidian Entertainment, no doubt come June, where we see more of the Outer Worlds 2, I'll have much more to say about them. Consider subscribing. All right, so since it feels like February was 14 years ago, let's just quickly recap. Avowed came out in February, and the reviews were, I think, a
All that time just to miss the shot. Wow.
little more
If that is not intentionally an analogy of what Avowed did, I don't know.
mixed than the OpenCritic score suggests. Right now, it's sitting at an 80 on OpenCritic. My review was that it was good, not great, and compared to the other RPGs and just recent products that have come from Obsidian, I was pretty disappointed overall. But others liked it a lot more to me, and there's no denying that Carrie Patel and her team definitely took this train wreck of a game, it seems like, behind the scenes and made it into something that was playable and, at the very least, enjoyable, which we'll get into a little bit later and why this is a pretty big loss for Obsidian, all things considered. But where is Carrie Patel going? Well, that was reported over at gamesindustry.biz, where they write that Avowed game director Carrie Patel joins Night School Studios. So we saw this happen with Joe Staten after Halo.
It's Netflix, by the way. Yes, that is Netflix. That is a subdivision of Netflix.
Infinite launch. Like, he came in, he landed the plane. It was a very crazy project, as we've heard many times before. Landed the plane, and once the stability was there and the future was secured, what did he do? He bounced to Netflix. So kind of the same deal here. There's something to be said about that. But nonetheless, she announced this via her LinkedIn page, as reported by gamesindustry.biz, but we don't know what project the Oxenfree developer is working on at this moment in time. Now, what's a little bit of an interesting wrinkle to this news that I did want to point out is that, also reported by gamesindustry.biz, is Netflix-owned Night School Studio cuts undisclosed number of staff, and you'll see the date of the article, February 19th, 2025. So this was like right as Avowed was coming out a few months ago, and these layoffs were happening, and this is where she would eventually jump ship to. So maybe she's in a safe window now. I will say I have a little bit of like reluctance about Netflix and gaming. They've made zero noise as far as I'm concerned. But
Dude, Netflix can't even make a good show. What do you what do you mean? What do you expect from gaming? I mean, there's no shot.
these were layoffs that were described by Game Developer as
Netflix gaming is the same when Amazon gaming, shut its doors because they admitted defeat, and then there comes out an article where the head of Amazon gaming says, "We tried to fight Steam." Bro, what do you mean? Did Steam even know you exist? I didn't know you exist. No one knew you exist. And you're telling me you're trying to fight Steam? What the fuck? Well, damn. How? No. Maybe you should have actually, I don't know, made sure that people even know you exist first before fighting Steam. But no, no, no. It's a heroic of send-off letter of we tried to fight Steam, but we couldn't.
as a shock, and that people did not expect them to arrive, but also that they will not impact any of the games currently in development. So that's good news for the gamers, I guess. Now, naturally, there's a lot of speculation to be thrown about on why she jumped ship when you get to that game director level at a company like Obsidian. And she has, by the way, all the credit in the world, really risen up the ladder completely, where she was doing a lot of narrative work on the Outer Worlds and then directed her own DLC and then rose up to a game director. Like, that is an amazing trajectory. That is the ideal trajectory in a lot of
That's, well, ideal trajectory, yes, but this actually should be everyone's trajectory. You should not spend 5 years in a dead-end job. You should be job skipping every year almost, maybe 2 if you have the opportunities to guarantee something. It kind of depends, but everyone can be a manager, but no one tries to be a manager.
ways. But I have thoughts on where things could be going from here with Obsidian. So let's start unpacking that. It starts off with Avowed's update roadmap. We right now don't have any DLC.
Oh god, we saw this, boys. We talked about it. This is just, there's 2 types of roadmaps. One, where a game is good and they want to release a roadmap to hype people up how much better things are gonna be. And 2 is the Diablo 4 type of roadmap where it's like, please pay some attention to us. We're kind of still doing shit, but not really. I mean, look at this. They couldn't even space these things out properly, okay? The spacing between this and this is different. This is how bad of a roadmap we're talking about.
Announced or confirmed for Avowed. This was a question I actually asked Carrie Patel when she was on Defining Duke with myself and Lord Cognito, and she said that they have to see how the game launches, how it does, and we don't have exact player count or numbers. We just have like the Steam player count, which wasn't really anything to gawk over. So
It was bad. It was horrible. The Avowed died in 3 days. It wouldn't even make it on top of the Xbox currently played games list. It was over.
all we have now is this update roadmap, which I think says a lot. The spring update's live now. It has an arachnophobia safe mode, mouse and keyboard support for Xbox, fog of war improvements, more gold and crafting materials, soul pods will dispel illusions, and unique gear improvements. How about that in one of the busiest times of the year to pull you back into Avowed?
Wow.
That's not enough? Okay, well, summer 2025, cooking and crafting improvements, new NPC abilities and behaviors. How about that for all the people who told me that, oh, the static towns were part of the design? Look at that. It reminds me a lot of what happened with Deathloop when people were trying to defend the AI being intentionally bad, and then the first big update for that game, guess what it had in there? Fixes NPC and AI behaviors. Okay, sure. It was intentional, right? New active and passive abilities, new unique weapons and armor, and custom map markers. That's this summer. And then fall, you get new game plus, a photo mode, a new weapon
What's the point even trying, considering you're up against Tainted Grail at this point?
type, changing appearance in the world, new character presets, and more godlike feature presets. So what this tells me is there was enough left in the tank to just push some features that were left on the cutting room floor for the rest of 2025. Maybe they do it.
No, not really. There is a chance that this is happening because the game's on Steam, and yeah, to sell it on Steam, if you're gonna say there's gonna be DLC, you need to deliver DLC.
Announced DLC for the game, but It just seems like that window is come and gone. And when this sort of roadmap drops at the same time as Carrie Patel leaving Obsidian, it says to me, based on, as I'll get into, some of the things she said leading into the launch of the game, that maybe the Pillars universe doesn't have this very strong future that we were all hoping Avowed would give birth to. It's definitely...
The Pillars universe is completely fine. It's the fact that Avowed is shit and Obsidian is shit. There you have it. I just said it out loud. What now?
No doubt, probably the most popular of the entirety of the Pillars series, but is that enough to keep investing in it? Especially because Carrie, right next to Josh Sawyer, was one of the main minds and writers behind the Pillars universe. Like, she was the ideal lead for the future of the Pillars universe, and no spoilers, but no doubt Avowed leaves the door open for much more in this universe to be explored. So to me, that update roadmap just kind of reads as like, this is for PlayStation fans, maybe Switch 2 fans, like when the game gets inevitably bundled up with all these updates and drops on another platform. I think that's what it's going to come with. There's all those updates in the base game, and that'll probably be it. Now, to be fair, I could be wrong about this because, for example, as I mentioned, Carrie Patel working as a director on Outer Worlds DLC, Megan Sparks, who eventually left Obsidian as well, directed Murder on Iridanos. So Obsidian does a pretty good job of using their DLC structure to get people's feet wet with like true director experience and then raising them up to like full-on projects. So that could also happen with Avowed. But again, I thought she'd be hanging around for the long haul to make more Pillars content. So this likely indicates to me that that's probably not part of the plan here. But also there's a human element to this all, because the reality is that this is a
I don't care about the human element. I want a good game.
huge loss for Obsidian, in my opinion, right? Because you basically lost someone who was there alongside what I think has been a really good stretch of like modern titles from them. Like, they've been defined by a lot of their older games, like for me, Knights of the Old Republic 2. But through that era of like transition, Carrie was one of those strong names that I think brought a lot of legitimacy to their games. But as Obsidian has been...
What is this? What is this absolute cope of a take? Oh yeah, the person who finally scored an actual leading role in a failed title, their name was so valuable for everything else that had ever happened. No, it was not. It was not even close to being valuable. It's a complete joke. Like, what is the stake, honestly? Like, this is just some next level glazing, okay? Her name has absolutely no weight behind it. The fact that she got into Netflix games says a lot because it's fucking Netflix games. No one cares.
Very open about, in particular, Carrie with some interviews. Avowed was in an awful spot years ago, and I think that's why it landed in the spot it did for me with
Yeah, it was in an awful spot. Guess what? She didn't make it better, though.
my review of just like an alright game. Because, as documented by Bloomberg in an interview with Carrie Patel, during the 2020 reveal trailer for Avowed, they say Avowed was floundering. The development team had gone through 2 different vertical slices, chunks of the game designed to demonstrate how it would all function and cut the multiplayer component. Even so, it was still failing to coalesce. By January, the studio decided to replace the project's leadership team and reboot the game. This came as a shock to the Avowed team, which consisted...
Yes, essentially she got to do Avowed as the third person in charge.
Of 80 people who were preparing to enter production. Now they would have to develop a third vertical slice and essentially start from scratch. In the weeks and months that followed, Patel had to simultaneously...
Okay, listen, see, this is what I mean. You heard it, right? There was nothing developed. She got to choose all of the problems that Avowed created, okay? Yeah, she didn't really get the chance to, like, probably do a super story that she would like to, but everything else was up to her, and it all sucked. It all sucked at the end of the day.
Simultaneously figure out a new vision for the game, refill key leadership positions, and ensure that dozens of writers, designers, programmers, and artists had work to do as Avowed found its footing. It's like building the tracks while the train is moving forward, Patel said. A lot of lessons we learned as we were building this game. Ideally, we would have learned on a small scale with a true pre-production, she added. You pause there. I brought this up in the video I originally covered this in, but yeah.
Listen, there is absolutely no way you're going to tell me that this is someone else's fault, okay? This choice was made intentionally.
The writing aspect is what really stood out to me. A lot of it felt like someone just needed a task, so they were kind of writing in circles and revisiting subjects that many other conversations were, and it felt like there wasn't a level of like, okay, we need to address this on the writing team. So yeah,
What are these women? It's a joke. They just look so hideous.
yeah, like you were definitely getting that feeling when you read this interview and you play the game that certain spots were just being filled on the fly just to make sure hands were busy, as I describe it. But as you can tell here, not a game made in an ideal environment. You continue on here. Obsidian isn't saying what's next for the team. Patel said that she wants to keep directing games, which she is doing clearly. The idea of something new is appealing, she said, but it seems more likely she'll be building on Avowed's foundation for expansions or sequels. Quote, now that we've built this wonderful world and also built this team, strength, and muscle memory around the content and gameplay in this world, I'd love to see us do more with it, end quote. So, two things could have happened here, right? Netflix offers a crazy bag. I think after seeing what happened to Joe Staten, where he like left a Microsoft position, like Netflix might have that crazy money to buy talent like, say, Carrie Patel. At the same time,
Oh Jesus.
it could have also just been that there is no future for Avowed, or worse yet, there is no future for her at Obsidian as a game director, and that she would be put in a different position, but she likes to be at the top because she's worked 12 years to get there. That's nothing we really know at this moment in time, but those are two directions
That seems more reasonable.
in which you can jump off from on what's going on with Obsidian Entertainment. Not only has she been incredibly transparent about the mess she had to clean up, which was the game itself and the state it was handed to her in. I mean, she said as much in our interview over on Defining Duke that this was an inherited project and it wasn't in a great spot, but also the messes that would be born, actually starting with, again, the Dukes are at the center of this game a lot, but started with our interview last August when myself and Lord Cognito traveled out to the Gamescom LA event that Xbox is hosting. We had the opportunity to interview the art director, Matt Hansen, along.
Oh, the casting couch. Also, this guy's insane. This is one of the people who ruined Avowed chances before the game started by saying, "Oh, I want this to fail because fuck Elon Musk." Yeah, this guy's a pretty unhinged individual, needless to say.
Alongside, I believe, the design director for Avowed, and we asked, I think, pretty decent questions, and one of them was about frame rate.
Look at that. He has the lift up shoes, so he doesn't look like a manlet.
And you know, Matt Hansen said that Avowed would not support 60 frames per second, which would have been, I think, a problem for a lot of people, but then it became, well, you don't need that. So this was mess A for.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about this. You don't need 60 frames per second. What are you, stupid?
Carrie and her team to clean up that was not created by her or anyone else. And then problem B, which we don't need to dive all the way into, ended up being a gigantic political train wreck that I think just ran this game's momentum completely off the rails and made all the conversation around the game null. And I think, again, if you are inheriting an already.
Wait, he's not going to mention that the political train wreck was by this guy right there? The one that I just mentioned?
Tough to manage project, and then you have people outside your leadership position saying things like, it's my game, and this is what I wanted to do, and this is how I feel. And we start to see insider reports of like division within the team. I talked about it a bit with what happened with Marathon and Bungie. Like that selfishness, I could see a world, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I could see a world where she's like, this is bullshit, dude. Like, I've not only managed to get this project in the rails, but now I see my face in YouTube thumbnails. Like, people are hating me because of something someone else said. Like, because I'm just the director. Like, I'm guilty by my job title. And I think,
Well, yeah, you didn't fire the guy.
once the reality of being a AAA game director.
She did not fire him. Yeah, that is definitely a bunch to say about that. Guy comes out, says, "Oh, I made this game bad so Elon Musk and the chuds don't like it," and she's like, "No, we're not gonna do anything to him. He's still gonna be on the game. I'm not gonna fire him, bro. What do you mean? You fired him?"
Director kicks in. Like, we've seen so many people flee that scene for good reason. It puts you at the center of the storm, and I can't imagine the juice is worth the squeeze sometimes. And when you start to see things like this happening around the project that already seemed like a headache to manage, now people are just saying things that are stupid and getting your game into trouble. I wouldn't blame her for being like, you know what? I spent 12 years here. I built up a great portfolio. I've done amazing work. And now I'm getting a bag offer to me from Netflix. Like, yeah, I see a world where this made it such an easy choice for her, right? And it's sad because if that second part I've covered here led to this decision, it was so avoidable, as I've talked about many times. But I do think right now, the too long didn't read is Avowed is no doubt shaping up these final updates, getting those features that were left on the cut.
This is less about Obsidian's future and more about Avowed. I guess it is all tied to Obsidian because Avowed failed, and well, the Other Worlds 2 is probably gonna be not good. I don't think it's gonna be like a super fail because we don't know anything about it yet. It's actually, I think it's pretty neat, but I don't think we know anything really about it. So it's uh, the Other Worlds 2 is kind of just up in the air. Now, will it be better than Outer Worlds 1? No. Again, the devs are just willingly ignoring every criticism people had about the game and just saying, hey, here's more weapons and have fun, and that's pretty much it, which is bad and stupid, obviously. So we're gonna just have to see, I guess. Anyway, that was Mr. Matty Plays.